Although Bajanangles appear to be a linguistic expression, contextually speaking, it comports itself like a portmanteau because these two words blend together to make a new word and flavors the conversation in publication 258 and ventilated in this podcast 143 in ISBN 978-976-9682467. The same is also examined through the lens of an author, cinematographer, media arts specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, podcaster, and publisher. Metaphorically and literally speaking, I was smitten by the angles in photography because they were infectious throughout the production of Bajanangles. Since this admission seems plausible, let me state for the record that I am not a linguist but a Barbadian who is a practitioner in the discipline of photography, which was one of my core courses during my academic tenure at New Jersey City University. This exposure gave me license to practice my craft on one hand, and on the other, understand and appreciate the doctrine of angles. In some ways, Bajanangles will behave like a portmanteau in this context because these two words blend together to make a new word and flavors the discourse. Further, this doctrine includes the following: what an angle is, what effect it has on an image, what angle is good for the image, how to angle my camera, and how I know my camera angle. The aforesaid theory explains why my camera angle marks the specific location and why I placed my camera to frame and capture this subject, Bajanangles, ISBN 978-976-9682467. This dialogue was conceptualized because of an appreciation for education, research, for the camera angles, and the environment. These attributes combined help provide the environment for me to make a statement. That said, metaphorically and literally speaking, this has become a way of life for me as a practitioner. In addition, this journey unearthed the information and knowledge which has certainly added value to my expressions of views, and by extension, it is certainly therapeutic. Now that I have established context, it is important to highlight other ingredients of photography, such as long shot, medium shot, close-up, extreme close-up, high angles, low angles, over the shoulders, point of view, pans, tilts, aerial shots. The aforesaid tools, which consist of lenses and angles, were employed to navigate the precincts of Barbados's coastal areas, the environs of a few of its iconic cultural historic heritage sites, not to mention the flora, nature, and sailing the coast. The long shot is also known as a full shot or a wide shot. A long shot frames the subject from head to toe. It also shows the subject in relation to the surrounding environment or to other characters. Long shots generally focus more on action and less on emotion. A medium shot in film and TV is a type of camera shot that shows the subject from the waist up. Medium shots draw attention to both the character and their surroundings by giving them equal space in the frame. A close-up is an intimate view or description. Extreme close-up is a more intense version of the close-up. High-angle shot. The camera looks down, making the subject look vulnerable or insignificant. Low-angle shot. The camera points upwards, usually making the subject or setting seem grand or threatening. The over-the-shoulder shot is a camera angle used in film and television where the camera is placed above the back of the shoulder and head of a subject. A viewpoint is the apparent distance and angle from which the camera views and records the subject. Panning in still photography refers to the technique of opening the camera shutter and then horizontally moving the camera before the shutter closes. Tilting is a type of selective focus, controlling the part of a photo that looks sharp by tilting the focal plane in relation to the image sensor plane. Aerial photography is the taking of photographs from an aircraft or other airborne platforms. A tracking shot is one in which the camera moves alongside what is recording. A macro lens is a special type of camera lens that has the ability to work with very short focusing distances, taking sharp images of very small subjects. The telephoto zoom lens is ideal for the budget-conscious photographer. The telephoto zoom lens is used for shooting sports, wildlife, and/or portraiture. A super telephoto lens is the superhero version of the telephoto type of glass. As a media art specialist and a licensed cultural practitioner, I am passionate about my craft since it influences my behavior, which has driven me to analyze this linguistic expression. That said, I am better able to clearly articulate my views in deconstructing Bajanangles, which is also part of the genesis that inspired me in utilizing the designated angle of view. This line of reasoning certainly helped me in describing the angular extent of the given selected subject to make my statement. I must confess that this process and procedure was employed interchangeably with the more general term field of view, a theory espoused by Wikipedia. I found this project educational and fascinating to the extent that I was able to distinguish the angle of view from the angle of coverage, which certainly describes the angle range that a lens can imagine. A case in point, the image circle produced by a lens is large enough to cover the film or sensor completely, possibly including some vignetting towards the edge. If the angle of coverage of the lens does not fill the sensor, the image circle will be visible, typically with strong vignetting toward the edge, and the effective angle of view will certainly be limited to the angle of coverage. Throughout this narrative, I have displayed adeptness in my approach, especially management of my angles. What an angle is, the effect it has on an image, what angle is good for that image, how to angle my camera, how I know my camera angle, and the camera angle that marks the specific location at which my camera was displaced to frame and capture this topic. These scenes were shot from several camera angles, simultaneously giving a different experience and emotion. At the end of the day, as a media practitioner, I subscribe to the view, according to Wikipedia, that the different camera angles I utilize will definitely have different effects on you, the viewer, and how you perceive the scene that was captured and framed. These scenes were shot from several camera angles, simultaneously giving a different experience and emotion. At the end of the day, as a media practitioner, I subscribe to the view, according to Wikipedia, that the different camera angles I utilize will definitely have different effects on you, the viewer, and how you perceive the scene that was captured and framed. As a practitioner, I am aware that there are a few different routes I can manipulate to achieve this effect. Yet, in this compendium, I have selected technique and skill because they are key in telling my story, Bajanangles, so as to influence the overall mood and tone of my narrative, which was new and occupying a different cultural space. In closing, although Bajanangles appeared to be a linguistic expression, contextually speaking, in some ways it comported itself like a portmanteau, because these two words blend together to make a new word and flavored this conversation. The underpinning of this intellectual abstract is grounded in the doctrine of angles. The same was examined through the lens as a media practitioner who utilized Barbados's geocultural space as the vehicle to tell my story. Bajanangles was conceptualized because of an appreciation for education and research for the camera, angles, and the environment. Bajanangles was captured and framed in publication 258 and ventilated in podcast 143 in ISBN 978-976-9682467.